out there, FlossTube. This is Kat. This is video number 3, and I'm starting it off a little bit differently than my past ones. I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of slice of my life and things that I do outside of cross stitch. So as you can see, there's a dog in my back seat. That is not my dog. That is not Heidi. So this is Bailey, and Bailey is a rescue from Echo Dog's White German Shepherd Rescue, and I am helping transport her to her new home. So today we're driving from Cincinnati to Dayton, Ohio. I'm leg number 2 of, I believe, 5. And basically we all take about an hour drive out of the length of the route, and we'll caravan her back to back to back, moving her from one car to another, and stopping for potty breaks and all that. And eventually she's going to get to her new home. So this is something I do pretty regularly because I live near 2 very major interstates. I live near 70 and 75. So I take dogs. Sometimes it's a little short, 3-leg runs. Sometimes it's something that can take 2 weeks and 20 people to do. So it's really cool to think about how many people come together to be able to do these and take care of these awesome dogs and get them to their new homes. So again, that's Bailey. And Bailey is an awesome passenger, and I'm really excited for her and for her new family, and I bet they're gonna have a great life together. So, on to the cross stitch. Okay, so now that you guys have seen a little bit of my life, I wanted to actually do a full FlossTube video. I actually recorded this yesterday morning, and somehow the file corrupted. The sound, something went crazy with the sound, and when I tried to import it in Premiere, the whole file was just messed up. So, not really sure what happened to that. I've been having problems with my camera reading the memory card right. I think that's what happened, is that something happened with the memory card. So we're gonna try this again. So I wanted today to do the Know Your Needleworker tag, which is something that was started back in October of 2014, but I've seen a lot of FlossTubers doing it over the last couple years. Everything from videos when they first started to videos like in the last few weeks. So I think it's really cool. Gives you a little bit more information about me. So I always like talking about me. I don't know why. So question number 1, by the way, I have them printed out. A little paper here. I can post this link where I got this from if you guys want the questions. So, question number 1, where do you live? I live in a town called Huber Heights, Ohio. It is a suburb of Dayton. Most people who know Dayton know it because we have a gigantic Air Force base, Wright-Patt Air Force Base, which is why my family is here. Because everyone in my family has either been military or worked for the military. However, I was not a military brat, so I lived in Dayton my entire childhood. I grew up in Fairborn, right next to the Air Force Base. So I lived there my entire childhood, and I did not move out of Fairborn until I was 18, and then I moved for college. So that's where I live. Number 2, what do you do for a living? I've mentioned before that I work in an amusement park. I work at Coney Island in Cincinnati, which most people don't realize still exists. People think that Coney Island closed in the 70s. It did not. It was originally going to because there's a lot of flooding issues. And so they built a new park on the other side of Cincinnati called Kings Island. People have probably heard of Kings Island. I'm actually wearing a Kings Island shirt today. Didn't even realize that until just now. But Kings Island is the younger brother and much bigger brother. But Coney Island never actually closed. It did continue. For a while it was only the pool area that stayed open, and then they brought rides back in the 90s, and now it's expanding. We're constantly growing. So yes, Coney Island does still exist. Coney Island, Cincinnati. It opened in 1886. It is 1 year newer than Coney Island as an amusement park in New York. So it is, I can't say we're the original. I've had this argument with a friend of mine who's from New York and worked at Coney Island as a teenager. Yes, the Coney Island in New York is slightly older by 1 year. They opened in 1885. They are more well known because they kept their classic roller coasters, and that's where the first roller coaster was built and things like that. Whereas our Coney Island did not keep their classic roller coasters because they were intending to transfer everything to this new park in Mason. But we're still there, 1886, and still counting. So anyway, I mentioned before that I've worked at several different amusement parks. I've worked at Dollywood, I've worked at Universal Studios, I worked at SeaWorld Orlando, I did work at Kings Island for 3 years. I was also the opening supervisor for a place called the Island in Pigeon Forge, and if you've been to Pigeon Forge in the last 4 years and you've seen the monstrosity of a Ferris wheel on the parkway, I opened that. I'm really proud of that. I was the opening supervisor for it. So I've worked for small parks, I've worked for big parks. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm working my way up into management at County because they actually appreciate that I have previous experience at amusement parks in leadership. I was a team lead at Dollywood, I was a supervisor at the Island. I'll be a lead this coming year at County. So that's what I do. I run rides. I operate the rides. I teach people how to run the rides. I love being in that environment. I love being in rides. Right now we're in the off season, so I'm not actively working at County, so I kind of have odd jobs here and there. I fill in, I drive for Lyft and Uber. I mentioned that in my last video when I was talking about my car that blew up. So I do that. There's stuff falling off my table. Not my cat's fault this time. I opened the windows today because it's in the 50s again, because Ohio's weather is so insane. We had a couple days in the 50s, and then it dropped down into the teens. We got 7 inches of snow, and we're in the 50s again. All in January. Ohio. But anyway, so I work a couple of odd jobs. I drive for Lyft and Uber. I also drive for DoorDash, which is food delivery. It's an on-demand food delivery service. A lot of people have heard like Postmates, Uber Eats. It's in the same kind of family as that. We go pick up food at pretty much almost every restaurant in the area and then deliver it. And I make enough money doing that to justify not having a standard job in the off season because it's so flexible. I make my own hours. So even when Coney's open, I can still drive for Lyft. I can still drive for DoorDash to make extra money. So that's what I do. Number 3 is kind of a long one. It's, do you have children? And I'm going to talk about some sensitive topics. So if you're uncomfortable with that, feel free to fast forward by a little bit. But I think there's some conversations that aren't discussed often enough. Things are too taboo in our society. I do not have any children, and that is not by my choice. We have tried very hard to be parents. Usually when somebody is unable to conceive for a year, they're referred to a fertility specialist. I have 2 medical conditions. One is endometriosis and the other is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which the combination of the 2 gives me about a 10% chance of conceiving naturally. We tried for 3 years and we decided not to pursue fertility treatments. I don't feel like I don't feel the need to force it because there's too many children out there in need of good homes. And my aunt has adopted many children. She's adopted, I believe, 8 children. And so I was raised in an environment where adoption was the norm. And adoption from foster care in particular was the norm. Adopting older children. She adopted kids who were anywhere from newborn to teenagers. And so when I was talking to my doctor and he recommended seeing a fertility specialist, I decided not to. Because with my health issues and the fact insurance does not cover fertility treatment usually, and everything else going on, we decided that wasn't in our best interests. But I feel like infertility in general is something there's finally open conversations happening about miscarriage and infant loss and pregnancy loss and the unique heartbreak that goes with that. But infertility is not really talked about. You get the stupidest advice. The stupidest advice people, oh, just relax, it'll happen. Oh, as soon as you adopt it, you'll get pregnant. No. Sorry. Relaxing's not gonna help. It's a medical condition. I don't ovulate. Sorry. That's not gonna fix it. So it's incredibly stressful when every month you're so hopeful and then there's nothing. And I've never had a positive pregnancy test. And I hate the word pregnancy scare because for me it would be such joy. I get really frustrated, something that most people who are close to me have heard me say when I read news stories of something parents have done that is absolutely terrible to their children. You know, stories of abuse and neglect and things like that. And my response is always, they can have children and I can't. And it's incredibly, it's disheartening. It's frustrating. It makes you feel like less of a woman. I can't do the one thing that every woman can do. I can't have children. I can't get pregnant. You know, there's so many people who do it accidentally, and I tried and I tried and I tried, and I couldn't. And so we decided to pursue adoption. We started that process. It'll be 2 years ago now that we started that process, and that ended in another heartbreak. We did all of the classes. There's like a total of 30 hours of training you have to do in a classroom setting. So we took all of those classes. It was every other Saturday. We gave up our Saturday for the entire day for, I think it was 3 months, 3 or 4 months that we took these classes. And we had a pile of paperwork to fill out, a self-study that you had to fill out that took days. It's something like 20 pages long of questions about everything from your family history, how you were raised, your religious beliefs, your how you would integrate, you know, your beliefs with a child of a different faith, how you would handle a child with special needs, how do you handle loss, how do you handle anger, just huge questionnaire that we had to fill out. They want your entire life history practically and paperwork proving it. And I had a binder, literally not kidding, this thick of papers. We had to have fire inspections of our house. We had to have home inspections of our house. We had to get references from family and friends. Just the process is so overwhelming. And I understand why they have to protect their children that they're trying to place. But at the same time, they make it almost impossible. And what happened with us was we did all of this. We actually slipped through the cracks a little bit because we ended up off sync. We ended up missing one of the classes, and we had to go back and retake it in the next round of classes. So we didn't finish our classes at the same time as everyone else we had gone through them with. We ended up finishing 2 weeks later. And somehow the information that we had finished the classes never got transferred from one department to another, and our caseworker never got that information. And so I didn't know who my caseworker was, because you don't get assigned your caseworker until you finish your classes. So I ended up having to I called into Children's Services, and I ended up actually emailing our classroom instructor and going, why have I heard nothing? It now been like 2 months since we finished, and I'm like, I've got all our paperwork, but we haven't heard from our caseworker. You know, we've got our self-study done. We've got our fire inspection done. We're waiting on her to come do our home inspections. And so after we finally got that settled out and got our caseworker, our home inspector assigned, we had there's 4 home inspections they have to do, and they have to do them over the span. They can be no more than a week apart, or no closer than a week apart. So it takes at least a month to do the home inspections. They will not do the final home inspection until 100% of your paperwork is turned in and approved. So we got all the way up to the final home inspection. We turned in all of our paperwork. By this point, it is now August. We started this process in January. So we're now in August. Yeah, by the way, that's 8 months. Pregnancy is 9 months. So we're already, you know, people always joke about, people who are going through the adoption process joke about that, we hear that pregnancy is 9 months of pain and suffering and frustration. And it's like, yeah, adoption's the same way. It really is. It's sometimes worse. It's not the physical pain, but my God, the emotional pain of, you have no idea what's going on at any point in time during this process. They do not keep you updated. They have too much to do. The Department of Children's Services is completely overwhelmed, and they have too much to do. They cannot babysit you. They cannot hold your hand. If you ask a question, you are lucky to get an answer. And it's kind of terrifying then. It's like, what happens if I have a problem with our foster child? But anyway, so we got up to the final home inspection and we got a letter from the state saying that we were missing paperwork. And we looked at our list of paperwork that we had and their list of paperwork that they said they needed, and they didn't match. And they needed things that we couldn't get a hold of. I mentioned in my live video last night that I've been previously married. I was married young and got divorced young. They wanted my marriage certificate and divorce certificate from my first marriage 10 years ago. I don't have that anymore. Why would I keep that? I have not needed that since I got remarried. Why would I have that? I don't even know how to get it. We got married in North Carolina. I have no idea how to get that. We got divorced in Tennessee, in Memphis, Tennessee. I can't just walk to the courthouse and pick that up. So they sent us this letter and said, oh, by the way, you have until September 30th to finish this. This was in August. We tried. It takes 6 weeks to process some of these paperwork requests. And the state's answer was, sorry, too bad, so sad, you gotta start the process over. So 30 hours of classes, untold hours of paperwork, all these home inspections, worthless, gone, out the window, don't matter, have to do it all over again. So that's a hurt you can't describe. We were expecting to spend our first Christmas as parents, and we had that ripped away from us. And I think the hardest part for me is that I had a child in mind. We had been looking, you aren't always, the way the process works is you're usually matched with a child based on your interests, their interests, whether they think they'd be compatible with you. However, you can request a child. There's a website called Adopt Us Kids. It's a nationwide listing of children who are in foster care. And I had been looking through it when we first started this process back in, it was actually September when we first started, because you actually have to do a pre-class that's an interest, it's an introduction class before they will even sign you up for classes. And you have to do this pre-class and some paperwork before you're even allowed to sign up for the classes to start the process. And they start the timer for when your paperwork has to be completed and you have to be approved by the state the day you email them asking to sign up for the interest class. So that was September of 2015, which is why our date was September of 2016 that we had to finish this all by. So back in September of 2015, I had been on Adopt Us Kids, and I had found a teenage boy. And I'm not going to give any identifying information, what state he was in or anything, but he was a teenager. And he listed his main interest as roller coasters, and that his absolute biggest dream was to go to Disney World. And I felt like this boy was meant to be with us, and that boy has now aged out of the system. And I feel like that should have been my child. I should have been there for him. I should have been able to be there for him. I should have been able to be his support system that kids so desperately need. And the system failed him. The system failed us. We slipped through the cracks like so many kids do. And I'm not giving up on adoption. I'm not giving up on foster care adoption, because I think it's a need that is too big. I care too much about it. But we don't know when we'll be ready to try again, because it is as painful as a pregnancy loss, I think. And people might get upset with me for saying that because I've never experienced a pregnancy loss. But I had a child ripped away from me. I had a potential child taken away from me through no fault of my own, through uncontrolled circumstances. And it hurts. It hurts in a way you can't understand. You can't, until you've been there, to have an adoption fall through like that, to have a foster placement fall through. I still wonder about that boy. I still wonder, did he graduate? Did he go to college? Is he living on the streets? Does he have family? Is he ever going to get to go to Disney? I'll never know any of that. So there's my long and involved answer to, do you have any children? One day we will be parents, and I look forward to it. I really want to be a parent. My husband really wants to have kids. He is 110% behind adopting, and especially adopting older children. He has had kids in foster care in his classes as a teacher, and he sees the difference between the ones who have been adopted and the ones who are still in foster care. And he said there's actually very little that's as heartbreaking as doing a parent-teacher conference and you realize that the person sitting across from you isn't their parent but their social worker because they don't have parents. And so it's something we both feel very strongly about. We are not going to give up. We will adopt. We will adopt from foster care. I always encourage others to adopt from foster care. The need is there. There are kids from newborn to, adults that need families. And so if you've ever considered adoption, it sucks. It sucks so much. It is a process that is a headache and a half. It's a headache and 4 headaches. And at the end, it's so worth it. If you'll put up if you can tolerate the pain of childbirth for a child, it's kind of the same thing. It's still going to be painful. It's going to be a different kind of painful, but it's still just as worth it. So there you have that. Number 4, do you have any pets? Yes, I've talked extensively about them. I have 2 cats and a dog. Candy is distracted by the open window down there. She's right here. In my last video, she was in my face. And when I recorded this yesterday, she did the same thing. So right now she's completely distracted by the open window. It's kind of handy. I also have another cat, Normal. You may or may not see him on camera. He's kind of shy. And then I have a white German Shepherd, Heidi. And they are all rescued animals. Normal, I told the story yesterday about my ex-mother-in-law finding him in a tree when he was a kitten. He's my miracle cat. And then Candy, she was originally a shelter cat. A friend of mine adopted her. Him and his fiance ended up splitting up. He had to move back in with his parents. They were both moving someplace they couldn't have a cat. And he posted a plea on Facebook, can anybody help me find a home for my cat? And I said I would take her. And it was supposed to be temporary until he was able to find someone to take her. And after about 3 months, I was like, whatever, I'll keep her. It's fine. I love her. She's a demon, but I love her. And then Heidi is a rescue. She's from German Shepherd Rescue of East Tennessee. She was originally dumped in a shelter in Knoxville. And then they took her into the rescue, and then I ended up with her. So, number 5, what are your other hobbies besides stitching? I have quite a few. I talked about in my last video, my sewing that I do outside of cross stitch. I make a lot of things. I make clothes. I have dog hair in my mouth. I make a lot of clothes. I make a lot of baby things. I make the taggy blankets for baby showers all the time. I also am a photographer. I mentioned that briefly in several of my previous videos. That I used to shoot semi-professionally. Actually got paid for shoots. I've decided not to do that anymore because it's really stressful when you're getting paid, because now there's it makes it more stressful and less enjoyable. And I've learned not to blur the line between hobby and business because I stopped enjoying photography when I was getting paid for it. So now I sell prints of my work, but they are things that I'm taking for fun, and then afterwards I'm like, oh wow, that photo's awesome, and I'll put it up on my Etsy page. Speaking of my Etsy page, I'll link it again down here. It's Katie Liz Photo. It's where I sell prints of my work. I have everything from pictures of hot air balloons and the Smoky Mountains to cars to roller coasters. So, other hobbies, music. I am a musician. I play viola. I play in the Miami Valley Symphony Orchestra. I also play percussion and flute. I play clarinet, played clarinet in high school. I also play oboe, cello, and violin. Although not really actively on any of those except for viola and percussion. I mainly play viola with the symphony, but sometimes because we are an unpaid orchestra, we're a volunteer orchestra, our staff kind of fluctuates from concert to concert. So sometimes we're short-staffed in percussion, and since I play mallets, they'll pull me over to percussion sometimes. I did that last year for Christmas. I played mallet percussion. But I've played viola since I was 10. I'm now 32, so I've been playing viola for 22 years. I played in my high school orchestra, obviously. I also played in a regional honors orchestra. I played percussion and marching band. I was in the pit. Okay, so remember how I said my camera was having problems with the memory card? Yeah, it just did it again. So hopefully it doesn't kill the sound on that last one, but it cut out and said buffer overflow. So I think my memory card's about to go out and I'm gonna have to go buy a new one because that has been happening repeatedly. So that was like 28 minutes of talking. Hopefully I did not lose that. That would be very annoying. And if that happens, I'm switching to my phone. So anyway, I was talking about viola, and my senior year of high school, all the different groups I played in. I played viola in the symphony orchestra, which was the honors orchestra, cello in the chamber orchestra, clarinet in the symphonic band, which again was the honors band, mallet percussion and marching band, viola in the Springfield Youth Symphony and in the Dayton Youth Philharmonic. So that's what I did my senior year. And then everybody was so shocked when I did not go into music in college. And that is because I hate music theory and I don't want to teach it. And outside of teaching, there are no careers in music. You can't really be a professional musician unless you go someplace like Juilliard. Unless you're a big name like, Joshua Bell or Stephen Sharp Nelson, the piano guys type thing. Lindsey Sterling. That's how you make a profession as a musician other than teaching. I didn't want to teach it. I like playing it. I hate theory. Hate music theory. I suffered through 2 semesters of it. I was like, done. So I didn't go into music. I actually have a general studies degree. I've gone back to school for business. I'm 2 classes away from my business degree, business management. So, which is more in line with what I want to do with working in amusement parks. Let's see, other hobbies. I mentioned photography. I mentioned music. My other one is cars. I love cars. I'm kind of like the oddball female. I stitch like the really, traditional female thing, and I work on my Camaro. I mentioned in my first video, there was a car that drove past that was really, really loud, and I mentioned, oh, that sounds like my Camaro. I have a 95 Camaro convertible Z28 with stupidly loud exhaust. It is stupidly fast, it is stupidly loud, it is stupidly sexy. I love that car. It's my dream project car. My brother and I had been wanting for years to have a project car, and last year I came across this Camaro on Craigslist, and by the way, it is almost impossible to find a mid-90s, it's a 4th generation Camaro. I wanted a 4th generation convertible, either black or red, with a manual, and I wanted it to be a V8. That is apparently, like, impossible to find. I looked for this car for years, and I stumbled across it. It was almost 2 hours away. And I emailed the guy and I was like, there's no way this guy still has it. There's no way, because it had been posted for like 2 months. Like, there's no way this guy has this car. And he did. So my brother went with me to meet this guy, and literally as he pulled it in the parking lot, I was like, this car's going home with me. I have to have it. Sorry I keep scratching my face, but my allergies are acting up really bad today, and having the windows open is not helping. I noticed in my last video I touch my face a lot. I know I do that. I apologize if that bothers anybody. I'm trying to keep my hands folded so that I don't do that. But anyway, so that Camaro did come home with me that day. It is gorgeous. It's black on black on black. It's a 6-speed manual. The engine in it came out of a 94 Corvette. Like I said, it has incredibly loud exhaust. You can literally hear me coming from a mile away. I'm actually going to be going out and driving it here shortly, because I haven't driven it in 4 months. I miss it. I haven't driven it since October. My husband has been the one driving it lately. Ever since I burned my foot back in December, I haven't been able to work the clutch because of how much it's a very, very, very stiff clutch, and I didn't have the strength to push down on it. I think I'm okay now, and I want to go take it out and drive it. So yes, I'm one of those females that can drive a stick shift. I'm actually quite good at it. Like I said, my brother and I work on that car. We haven't made any modifications to it yet. It was extremely modified when I got it. It has a completely different engine, transmission, suspension. A lot of the components have been changed out from what it was from the factory. We've been fixing it more than modifying it, but hopefully this coming summer, I'm going to be able to start working on modifying it. There's some things that I really want to do with it. My dream is to eventually get it supercharged, and then it will be even more stupidly fast and even more stupidly loud. So I've got a little video clip of the day that I got it, my brother driving it through a parking lot, so you can hear how stupidly loud this car is. So I'm going to show you a quick picture of it that I took last year over the summer when it was real pretty out, and then I'm going to show you the little video clip of my brother driving it and showing how loud it is and how fun it is. So that's my Camaro. I have too much fun with it. I have not gotten pulled over in it yet. My husband has. I made fun of him endlessly for that. He did not get pulled over for speeding. He got pulled out because the license plate light was burned out, and I laughed hysterically because this car has so many electrical problems from where the engine was switched out, and the guy who did it he was a teenager and he didn't really know what he was doing. So this car has endless electrical problems and electrical gremlins in it. And I'm like, oh, it's probably not burned out. It probably doesn't work because I don't have backup lights, which is really annoying. I don't have a horn. There was something else I didn't used to have and I do now. I can't remember what, but so I was like, it probably doesn't work. And no, it was actually burnt out. I was like, what? Okay. So I'm like, of all the things, the speedometer didn't work. That's what didn't work and now does. The speedometer didn't work. It does now. He got pulled over for speeding when he took it out to Indiana in the fall, and he got pulled over. He was doing like 76 and a 55 or something like that, and the speedometer doesn't work. And this cop could have written him like so many tickets because he never changed his driver's license from Indiana. So the cop asked him whose car it was. He said, it's my wife's. And he's like, yeah, because it's registered by name. And he's like, so do you not live with your wife? Because your driver's license is Indiana. He's like, no, I just haven't changed it. Okay, well, how long have you lived in Ohio? Almost 4 years. Yeah, that needs to get fixed. Then he was also doing 72 and a 55. Cop asked if he knew how fast he was going. He's like, no. He's like, let me guess, your speedometer doesn't work. Nope, it doesn't. So the cop disappears for a little while, and he comes back, and he's like, you've got two things going for you. The first is that I'm a really nice guy, and the second is that Dylan says you're a really good teacher. One of my husband's former students, who actually became a friend of ours after he graduated, was the dispatcher. And he was like, you just pulled over Nick. And so Dylan messaged me on Facebook later about my husband driving my Camaro too fast. So yeah, we have fun with it. My husband actually has his own sports car. It's broken right now. He has a Ford Mustang GT, so we like our fast cars. My best friend slash roommate slash sister, you'll hear me refer to her in any of those terms. Best friend, you'll hear me refer to as roommate, and you'll hear me refer to her as sister. We're very, very close, but she has a Saturn Sky convertible that I drive more often than she does. I drive her Sky a lot, mainly because she's still not confident with the manual transmission. I'm teaching her, and she just isn't confident with it, even though she can do it. And I keep telling her, you know, if you just get it in it and drive, you'll be fine. Just drive it. It's fine. You know what you're doing. I've seen you do it. You'll survive. Do it. It's fine. You're gonna mess up. It's what happens. So, so cars are my other big hobby. I actually used to work in the automotive industry. I sold cars for 2.5 years. I worked for Saturn. Briefly before they went out of business. I sold Saturns from the 06 to 08 model years. Up until I bought my Equinox, I had never owned anything but a Saturn. I've owned quite a number of them. I used to be very active in the Saturn enthusiast community. I had a modified Saturn. I had an SC2 that I had pretty modified, and then I also had a Redline View, which is the sports model. And I used to organize like meetups and stuff like that. So cars have always been a big part of my life. It's something that me and my brother do to spend time together, is we work on cars. We work on my Camaro, we work on his Subaru. He taught me how to work on my cars. I could build an engine if I wanted to. I don't usually want to. But if it's something easy like spark plugs or brakes or something like that, that it costs a stupid amount of money to have somebody else do, I do it myself. I'm like, I just put spark plugs in my Equinox not long ago. I just redid the brakes on my Saturn recently. I do still have my Saturn. I have a 99 SL2 Homecoming Edition. That is my extra car. I use it to drive for DoorDash because it's got 221,000 miles on it, so miles don't matter. But I just did brakes on it. The only thing I don't do myself is I don't change my oil. I'm lazy. It takes too much effort. And it's not the amount that it costs to buy oil versus how much it costs to pay somebody to change it. I'm like, I'll pay the extra $5 and make somebody else crawl around under it. So that's kind of a funny thing about me. Number 6 on the list of, I did have a purpose. Number 6, what is your favorite movie? I don't have one. Because it's too hard to pick. I love Frozen. I usually say Frozen is my favorite movie. I've mentioned before that I'm like 4-year-old level obsessed with Frozen. You'll notice most of the time in my Stitch With Me videos, I'm wearing Olaf pajama pants. I have like 4 pairs of Olaf pajama pants. Anna is my spirit sister. I actually have an Anna needle minder sitting right here that I made. She's so cute. So I love Frozen. I get irritated with people who are like, hey, Frozen is so overrated. I'm like, I'm sorry, but Frozen was amazing. Yes, it blew up in a way that I think nobody was quite expecting. And I think that's because little girls just love it. And it's a movie that so many people could connect to. My brother and I were raised separately because our parents were divorced. My brother grew up in my dad's house. I grew up in my mom's house. But we're still incredibly close as siblings now as adults. And so like I connect to the storyline so much because I'm the little sister and I was separated from my big brother for reasons that I didn't understand as a kid. And yet I still loved him. So that and Anna in general is my spirit sister. But that movie connects with me really strongly because of its storyline. So I consider that my favorite movie. I love the Marvel movies. I actually started the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I wasn't at all interested in it at first. I started it with Doctor Strange because I love Benedict Cumberbatch and I will watch anything he's in. And so I watched Doctor Strange and I loved the movie so much that I was like, I kind of want to check some more of these out. So I actually started back with Iron Man and watched the whole MCU up until current. There's a squirrel running. Literally, like, people joke about ADD squirrel. No, there was literally a squirrel that ran past the window ledge right here. But I went back and watched the entire MCU and loved it. Absolutely loved it. Really looking forward to Infinity War. I saw Thor Ragnarok in theaters. Loved it. The scene with Tom Hiddleston and Benedict Cumberbatch, I think I melted into a little puddle. It was the best scene ever. I've actually found illicit copies of it on the internet just to rewatch that scene. Number 7, what is your favorite TV show? That one's easy. Sherlock. I'm obsessed with that show. Completely obsessed with it. I mentioned before I'll watch anything with Benedict Cumberbatch, particularly Sherlock. I don't know what it is about that show that I fell hardcore in love with it. I've watched all of the whopping 13 episodes of it so many times that I have them pretty much all memorized. I think I will die if they never produce it again. So like I always stalk like UK news sites anytime Sherlock is mentioned, like, is there any news about it? Is there any news about it? Hoping we will get a season 5. I'm really hoping we will get a season 5. Number 8, what is your favorite book? I don't have one of those either because I love to read. I am a big reader. I usually read anywhere from 50 to 100 books in a year. Not kidding. I read fast. So I finish a book in a day. So when I sit down and read, I read. Done. Like, finish the book. The genre I read the most often is romance, just because they're so easily available. But I will read fantasy, I'll read sci-fi, I'll read mystery, I'll read suspense. Only thing I won't really read is horror. It doesn't interest me. My favorite author is Laurel K. Hamilton. She writes science fiction, fantasy. She writes vampire novels. I've met her several times. I have quite a number of books signed by her. If I had to pick a favorite book, if you tied me down and beat me until I told you my favorite book, I would say it's Blue Moon by Laurel K. Hamilton. But I also love romance books. I love Julia Quinn. I love her Bridgerton series. I love Jo Beverly. I loved her books. She passed away last year from cancer, which was very heartbreaking because her books are so good. Number 9, what is your favorite music? I generally listen to hard rock. My favorite bands are Linkin Park, Godsmack, System of a Down,
I like a lot of music from Disturbed. 3 Days Grace. You know, the harder rock. My favorite, I listen to XM a lot because I'm in my car so frequently. I have XM radio in both my cars. My favorite channel is Turbo, which is 90s and 2000s hard rock. It's a lot of the stuff that was popular when I was in high school and college. My favorite band, though, is a band called Vast, which is, they never really hit it big nationally. I actually heard them on Turbo like a week ago, and I like started freaking out because I've only heard them on the radio like twice. But my favorite song is by Vast. I left out Evanescence. I love Evanescence. Their older stuff especially. But my favorite song by Vast is Touched, and that song was used in, it's been used in some like TV and movie trailers. So you may have heard it. I'll put a link to the video down here so you can see what my favorite music is. Number 10, one word that best describes you. Chaos. That's why my channel is called Cross Stitch Chaos, because my life is so chaotic. I never know what's going on at any given time. I bounce around between a lot of things. I have so much stuff going on. I am a serial starter of all things, not just projects, but hobbies in general. I will try anything. I'm interested in so much stuff. I'm one of those people that I could go to college for my entire life and never take all the classes that I want to take and never learn all the things that I want to learn. I am a trivia master because I have so much useless knowledge because I want to learn about everything. I want to know something on every subject. I really could be a career college student. I'd be okay with that. So chaos is my word. Okay, so that's new Needleworker. My camera battery is dying, so I'm gonna hurry up and finish this video up. I mentioned in my very first video that I had lost the color key to Beach Romance, which was it's the picture of the two people standing on the beach, and it has our name written in the sand, and that was the wedding sampler that my husband and I picked out. And I was really disappointed that I couldn't finish it because I lost my color key. And so I, on a suggestion of somebody that follows me on Instagram, I emailed Janlin Corporation through their contact me link on their website and told them what had happened, what I needed. They asked for the kit number because it had apparently been printed in multiple different alternate styles. And so I gave them that, and they mailed me a color key. That's so cool. I'm so happy. That made me like so happy. That's great customer service. They replied like the next day and got this sent out, and I got it yesterday in yesterday's mail. So thank you, Janlin. That's awesome. I can finish that piece now. I also mentioned in a previous video about the Christmas present that I received from my brother-in-law, which was Aurora Cabin, and I never showed that on video, so there it is. This is going to get started, and this is going to get done because I love this piece. I think it's so pretty. It matches my husband's Aurora picture back there. Bucket list item of mine is to see the Aurora Borealis. So. And then another thing that I mentioned in my last video was I have a piece, probably one of my favorite finishes, that used to hang in my guest bathroom, but now that we have a permanent roommate that uses that bathroom, and so the shower, you know, gets run and things like that, I was afraid of it getting damaged, so I actually took it out of the bathroom, and it now hangs in the hallway outside the bathroom. But it is stitched entirely in Krynic braid. And probably my favorite thing that has happened is I posted a picture of this finish on my Instagram about 2 weeks ago, and hashtagged it with Krynic Metallics, and they liked it. I'm like, because it's a pooping unicorn. It's a rainbow pooping unicorn. Look at, he's sparkly. Those are all Krynic braids. They're all Krynic number 8 braids. This is stitched on linen, or it's on even weave. I believe it's 25 count even weave. And he's pooping rainbows, and I don't know why I find it so funny, but I do. And then I made him sparkly because there's nothing better than a sparkly rainbow pooping unicorn. So that's my sense of humor right there. The home inspector, when she came the first time, and she went into the guest bathroom, she's like, "You have a pooping unicorn?" Yes, I do. The other thing I wanted to kind of show off, I kitted up. I talked about the possibilities, which is the Evolution Rainbow from Heaven and Earth that I bought, and now I like really, really desperately want to start. I started kitting it up, and I just have to show you the box of floss because it's beautiful. Look at those rainbow colors. They're beautiful. I love it. I ran out of floss cards. That's what this is doing over here. My new floss cards should be here like today or tomorrow. And I also don't have, like, this big empty space is all the new colors that I had to order from an Etsy seller. So I'm waiting on them because none of the local stores have the new colors yet, and they're back ordered from DMC. So I had to find somebody that I could order them from, and she's getting those packaged up and mailed to me. So that's exciting. The last thing that's not an update on Beauty and the Beast is I showed you last time how I put my stuff on scroll frames where I tape it to the big scroll rods, and I have, you know, big 36-inch long scroll rods. Well, I went ahead and put the material for my Stitching George Washington project on the scroll rods, and then I was like, well, how do I keep them from getting dirty and the cat's messing with them and things like that? So I made a little drawstring bag. This is something that I made on my serger in like 2 minutes with, well, it was more like 10, but I just made it out of scrap material. This is the fabric that I used for my Haunted Mansion skirt because it looks like the Haunted Mansion wallpaper. And this is just scraps from where I made that skirt, and I put a little ribbon drawstring on it, and it covers my scroll rods. So that's kind of fun, and that's why I love being able to sew, because I can do kooky things like that. So I gotta reach it, it's like way down here. I've been doing really well on Beauty and the Beast. I've been using it for my Stitch With Me's, and I stitched on it at my grandma's Friday night, and it's been getting good progress. I made it to the corner. Look at that. That's the top edge of it right there. That's the top of the piece. So last night it got flowers. I did all this purple up here during my Stitch With Me last night, and then after that I did these pink flowers. That was what was done. I would have gotten a lot more done, but I ended up getting distracted. My husband and I were having a conversation. He's a manager at Coney, and they're having their preseason manager meeting today. That's what he's off doing right now, actually. And we were talking about, we were working on the list of things that he wanted to talk about with the other managers. So we got distracted talking about that, and I did not get much stitching done. So all I got done was the flowers, but it's good progress. That piece is gonna get finished soon. Need to keep up my work on it so that it can actually get done and get framed. I'm excited about that. My framer is constantly asking me, when are you gonna bring me Beauty and the Beast? I mentioned before that my framer's a friend of mine. He's a coaster friend, which is kind of cool. I was friends with him before I found out he was a framer. And then I was like, well, do you do needlework? And he's like, oh yeah. And he was explaining to me how he does it. He does the laced back. And I was like, you actually know how to do this. Whereas everybody else I've talked to, they just want to cut it and glue it. I'm not okay with that. So I hadn't been getting my pieces framed since my previous framer went out of business, that she retired. And I didn't know where to get my pieces framed because I didn't trust them to, the big box stores that were just going to tear them up. And then I found Dave, Frame Makers of Powell. If you live in Central Ohio, Frame Makers of Powell is an amazing place to get your stitching framed. He treats my pieces with more respect than I treat my pieces. He frames everything that I make now. He frames everything my grandma makes. So that's there's my little plug for Dave, Frame Makers of Powell. So yeah, my battery's almost dead on my camera, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off. I actually have to go to work here in about an hour, so no guarantees when this is gonna get uploaded, but you'll see it when you see it. Hopefully the issue with the memory card doesn't completely kill the entire video, and hopefully I can edit it correctly this time, because last time I massacred the quality, and there is a giant spider on my window. That's not what I hate spiders. And I won't kill them either. I make my husband do it. I'm terrified of spiders. Maybe my dog will eat it. I don't know. Sometimes the cats will eat it. The cats keep our house bug free, but they're too distracted with the open windows right now. So there's a giant spider, and that completely derailed the end of my video. So I'll be doing another Stitch With Me this coming weekend. It's either going to be Friday or Saturday. I tend to do my Stitch With Me is between 10 and midnight Eastern time, so I would love it if you came and joined me. I love all the live comments when people talk to me. I love the conversation. It's so fun. If you want to watch my Stitch With Me's later, they're available on my YouTube channel. I always make them available to watch, because the comments don't carry into the watch later, where like Facebook Live does, where you can actually see the comments later. You cannot see the comments that were made while it was live streaming. So I do read those out, so that you can kind of understand what's going on with the conversation. So, but I will be doing that next weekend. I don't know if it will be Friday or Saturday yet. We'll see. I'm gonna go drive my Camaro now. Bye.